There was a time when simply walking through a Las Vegas resort could feel like an attraction in its own right. As new hotels opened and existing ones pushed to stand out, casinos began filling their public spaces with rides, shows and large-scale spectacles, designed to stop visitors in their tracks. Some leaned heavily into theme park-style experiences, while others relied on dramatic shows, meant to draw crowds off the strip and deeper inside. This is a look back at those lost experiences, the rides, shows and attractions that once defined an era of ambition and excess, before quietly disappearing as the strip continued to reinvent itself. When Excalibur opened in 1990, it was designed as part of Las Vegas's push toward family-friendly mega-resorts. Built by Circus Enterprises, the new property leaned heavily into theming, affordability, and attractions that could entertain guests beyond the casino floor. And like most things in Vegas, this wasn't subtle. Excalibur presented itself as a full medieval fantasy, complete with a moat, drawbridge, roaming performers, arcades, and dedicated attractions. Among its most visible features in its early years was the Dragon Show, staged directly in the castle moat. Debuting in 1993, the attraction featured a large animatronic dragon, emerging from beneath the drawbridge to confront a mechanical Merlin. The three-story creature breathed fire, released smoke, and lumbered forward on tracks embedded in the moat, performing hourly each night. Built by AVG Technologies, the same company responsible for MGM Grand's Wizard of Oz display, the dragon took 9 months to construct and was promoted as one of the largest animatronic figures in Vegas at that time. Despite the scale of the installation, the show never quite lived up to its ambitions. The movements were slow and the effects modest. By the turn of the millennium, the Dragon Battle had become infamous enough to be voted Worst Attraction in the Las Vegas Review-Journal's awards in 2002 and 2003. The show ended quietly the following year, with maintenance costs often cited as the official reason. And while the performance disappeared, the dragon itself reportedly remains intact, hidden behind the castle facade, a sealed relic of Excalibur's early years. Inside the resort, Excalibur offered another key family attraction, Merlin's Magic Motion Machines. Located on the Fantasy Fair level, these were motion simulator theatres, capable of showing a number of different films. Each theatre seated 48 guests, all moving together in sync with the projected action. Marketed as America's first magic motion simulator, the attraction combined large format film, surround sound, and hydraulically actuated seating, designed to jolt, tilt, and shake in time with the on-screen visuals. The experience focused on short, intense sequences, usually lasting just a few minutes. Films placed riders directly into first-person scenarios, runaway trains, downhill races, off-road pursuits, and simulated roller coasters. One of the most notable sequences featured footage of Colossus at Magic Mountain, repurposed as a virtual roller coaster ride. Others included titles such as Street Luge, Alpine Express, Desert Jewel, and Glacier Run. Tickets were sold individually or bundled, with hotel coupons making the attraction an easy upsell for guests already on property. By the late 1990s and early 2000s, motion simulators like this were everywhere in Las Vegas. Nearly every family-leaning resort had one, and novelty quickly gave way to oversaturation. Excalibur's simulators were eventually phased out and replaced by newer 4D-style attractions, using updated films and seating systems, though the underlying concept remained. Together, the Dragon Show and Merlin's Magic Motion Machines reflected a specific moment in Las Vegas history. This was a city experimenting with attractions that borrowed heavily from theme parks, attempting to create a family destination with mass appeal. Excalibur committed fully to that idea, building attractions that were ambitious, visible, and aimed at families. Most of those elements are now gone, stripped back as the resort evolved into a more conventional strip property. But for a time, Excalibur wasn't just a casino in a castle. It was a place where dragons roared, magical seats moved, and Las Vegas genuinely tried to sell fantasy alongside slot machines. When the MGM Grand opened on December 18, 1993, it aimed to be more than just another mega resort on the Las Vegas Strip. At the time, it was the largest hotel in the world, and MGM leaned heavily into the idea that this would be a destination not just for gamblers, but for families as well. Inside the hotel, guests were greeted by Wizard of Oz themed exhibits, complete with the Emerald City and a winding yellow brick road. But the centerpiece of MGM's family-friendly attractions sat just outside the hotel itself. Behind the resort, on land that once housed the Tropicana Country Club, stood MGM Grand Adventures, a full-scale movie studio-themed amusement park. The park opened alongside the hotel and covered 33 acres. With a reported construction cost of around $120 million, MGM Grand Adventures was designed as a compact but densely packed theme park, drawing inspiration from other movie studio theme parks. The park featured elaborately themed streets, costumed performers, and a mix of rides and live shows, intended to keep families entertained for a full day. MGM Grand Adventures was divided into a series of themed areas, meant to resemble film backlots and international locations. These included New York Street, New Orleans Street, Casablanca Plaza, Tumbleweed Gulch, Asian Village, Salem Waterfront, French Street, and Old England Street. Each area blended stylized architecture with attractions and street entertainment, creating a park that felt ambitious, if somewhat eclectic. At opening, the park featured 7 major rides. One of the most prominent was the Backlot River Tour, a guided boat ride that took guests through a series of simulated movie sets. Drawing comparisons to both Disney and Universal Studio tours, the attraction featured jungle scenes, a Civil War battle, temple ruins, and a climactic helicopter attack sequence. Another standout was Deep Earth Exploration, a hybrid dark ride and motion simulator that opened shortly after the park debuted. Riders boarded drilling vehicles for a journey to the centre of the Earth, combining projected footage with physical sets viewed through opening side panels. It was an ambitious attraction for its time, even if execution and reliability proved inconsistent. The park's primary thrill ride was Lightning Bolt, an indoor space-themed roller coaster. While modest by modern standards, it served as the park's only coaster and was later expanded and moved outdoors in 1997. Water rides were a major feature of the lineup. Grand Canyon Rapids was a heavily themed whitewater rafting attraction, featuring animatronics, gunfight scenes, and a dramatic explosion finale, and was widely regarded as one of the park's best rides. Over the Edge, a log flume set in an old sawmill, offered 2 sizable drops, and provided welcome relief from the desert heat. Rounding out the ride lineup was Parisian Taxis, a bumper car attraction set on the streets of Paris. In 1996, the park received its only major new ride addition, Sky Screamer, a towering sky coaster that became the park's most intense attraction. Riders were hoisted more than 200 feet into the air, before triggering a free-fall swing, reaching speeds of up to 70 miles per hour. It was an upcharge experience, but quickly became one of the park's most recognisable features. MGM Grand Adventures also placed a heavy emphasis on live entertainment. The most popular show was the Dueling Pirates Stunt Spectacular, performed in the 950-seat Pirates Cove Amphitheatre, and featuring a full-scale pirate ship and lagoon. Several indoor theatres hosted rotating productions, including magic shows, stunt performances, ice skating, an audience participation experience like You're in the Movies. Street performers and costumed characters filled the park throughout the day, reinforcing the idea that this was a living movie set. Despite its scale and ambition, the park struggled almost from the start. Ticket prices were high, the number of attractions was relatively small, and many visitors compared it unfavourably to the much larger theme parks just a few hours away in Southern California. The outdoor layout also worked against it, particularly during the intense Las Vegas summer heat, while the nearby Adventuredome offered a fully indoor alternative. By the late 1990s, MGM began re-evaluating how the land could be used more profitably. In 1997, nearly half of the park was removed, to make room for a major pool complex, spa, and convention centre. Several attractions were permanently closed, and the park's footprint was reduced by around 40%. In 1998, MGM Grand Adventures shifted to seasonal operation. Attendance continued to decline, and no further major investments were made. The park closed to the public after the 2000 season and briefly re-emerged as a private event space known as the Park at MGM. But by 2002, even that was no more. Today, the site of MGM Grand Adventures is occupied by the signature MGM Grand, expanded resort amenities, and Top Golf, developments far more aligned with modern Las Vegas priorities. While MGM Grand Adventures ultimately failed, it remains a clear example of early 1990s Las Vegas ambition. It showed a city attempting to push beyond gambling and nightlife, using themed entertainment to broaden its appeal. The park didn't disappear because it lacked scale or imagination, but because visitor expectations, competition, and the economies of the Strip ultimately worked against it. Opening in October 1993, Luxor was designed to stand apart from most Strip resorts. The property was conceived as a complete attraction environment, where the journey through the building mattered as much as the destination. Its most elaborate features weren't hidden deep inside the casino, but placed prominently outside and within the pyramid itself. One of the first things visitors encountered was Karnak Lake, located between the massive Sphinx and the front obelisk. The lagoon held roughly 300,000 gallons of water and was fitted with more than 100 computer-controlled fountains. During the day, the lake functioned as a visual centerpiece. At night, it became the setting for a free show that combined water effects, lighting, and lasers fired from the Sphinx's eyes. Those lasers projected Egyptian imagery onto a towering water screen formed by the fountains, creating a spectacle designed to compete directly with the Mirage Volcano further up the Strip. While visually striking, the attraction had a short lifespan. In late 1995, the Federal Aviation Administration ordered the shutdown of all outdoor laser light shows within a 20-mile radius of McCarran International Airport. With that ruling, Karnak Lake's nightly show was permanently ended. Inside the pyramid, Luxor doubled down on immersive attractions. Running around the perimeter of the casino floor was the Nile River Tour, a paid boat ride that carried guests through a 3,000-foot indoor waterway. Small barges transported riders past murals, sculptures, and recreated artifacts, inspired by ancient Egypt, looping around the atrium and connecting different areas of the property. The ride lasted roughly 15 minutes and was unlike anything else on the Strip at the time. Guests boarded directly inside what would traditionally be a hotel lobby, drifting past slot machines, restaurants, and themed environments. Despite its novelty, the Nile River Tour operated only for about 3 years. By the mid-1990s, the river was remodelled as the interior layout of the casino was simplified and the space was repurposed. Above the casino level sat one of Luxor's most technically ambitious offerings, Secrets of the Luxor Pyramid. Created by visual effects pioneer Douglas Turnbull, the attraction consisted of 3 separate 15-minute experiences, each housed in its own purpose-built theatre. The first, In Search of the Obelisk, functioned as a motion-based film experience. Guests were placed into simulator seating and taken on a chase through a fictional underground pyramid, blending high frame rate projection, physical motion, and surround sound. The attraction proved extremely popular and later received nationwide distribution at other venues. The second experience, Luxor Live, shifted location entirely. Set in New York's Times Square, it placed guests inside a staged television broadcast, blending live-action footage, 3D imagery, and simulated global events. The trilogy concluded with Theatre of Time, housed in a steeply raked auditorium featuring a 7-story screen. Seating rose at a dramatic angle, placing half the audience below the projector and half above it. The presentation focused on large-scale visuals and experimental film composition, pushing the boundaries of what theatrical presentation could look like in the early 1990s. In 1996, Theatre of Time was removed and replaced with a full IMAX theatre, making Luxor the first venue in Nevada to host IMAX 3D films. The conversion reused much of the existing infrastructure, including the massive screen and seating layout. The IMAX operated for more than a decade, screening large-format educational and effects-driven films, before closing in 2008 to make way for new exhibition spaces. Another major opening day attraction was King Tut's Tomb and Museum. The museum featured 4 rooms of Egyptian history displays and a full-scale replica of King Tutankhamun's burial chamber. The replica was created by artists near Cairo and became one of the most educational attractions on the Strip. The museum remained in operation until 2008, when Luxor began a broader effort to scale back its Egyptian theming. The replica artifacts were donated to the Las Vegas Natural History Museum, where they remain on display today. By the late 2000s, most of the Luxor's original attractions were gone. Karnak Lake had been paved over. The Nile River Tour had long since been removed, while secrets of the Luxor Pyramid and the IMAX Theatre were replaced by travelling exhibitions, such as Titanic and Bodies. What remains is the pyramid itself, its inclined elevators, cavernous atrium, and unmistakable presence on the Strip. But the numerous rides, shows, and motion-based attractions that once defined Luxor have largely vanished, becoming part of Las Vegas history. Conceived as more than just a place to shop, Forum Shops at Caesars Palace opened in 1992. From the beginning, the mall was designed as a full experience, with sky-painted ceilings, marble streets, and staged shows. Movement through the space allowed this to unfold before you, and entertainment was built directly into the environment. One of the centerpieces of the original Forum Shops was the Festival Fountain, a large indoor fountain built around an hourly animatronic show. Set among classical columns, Roman gods were positioned around the fountain and brought to life through synchronized movement, lighting, lasers, music, and narration. By the mid-1990s, with the success of the original mall established, Caesars moved forward with a major expansion. When the new extension opened in 1997, entertainment once again played a central role. This time, the focus shifted from Roman mythology to something more dramatic. At the rear of the expanded Forum Shops, a new free show debuted, Fall of Atlantis. Built around a massive aquarium, the show featured towering animatronic figures, fire effects, mist, and water jets, telling the story of King Atlas and the destruction of Atlantis. It was larger and more technically complex than the Festival Fountain, designed to act as a visual anchor at the far end of the mall. Alongside it came a paid attraction that pushed the Forum Shops further into theme park territory, Race for Atlantis. Race for Atlantis was a large-scale IMAX motion simulator housed within the Forum Shops complex. Guests queued through themed spaces before boarding one of several motion platforms inside a domed IMAX theatre. Wearing 3D headsets with integrated audio, riders were placed in the middle of a fast-paced chariot race through the collapsing city of Atlantis. The ride combined large-format film, computer animation, and 6-axis motion bases. And at the time of its opening in early 1998, it was promoted as one of the most advanced simulator attractions anywhere outside a major theme park. The Festival Fountain Show, which had anchored the original 1992 shops, was eventually retired in 2011. The fountain itself remains, but without the motion and hourly performances. Race for Atlantis closed later, ending operations in 2016, and later being removed entirely to make way for retail space. With both attractions gone, the Forum Shops quietly moved away from paid and large-scale ride experiences. By the 2000s, Caesars Palace had repositioned the Forum Shops as a luxury retail environment first and foremost. As tenant values increased and the mall became one of the highest-grossing shopping centres in the world, large-scale attractions were no longer essential to its identity. What remains is a trace of that earlier era. The Fall of Atlantis continues to run, scaled back but largely unchanged in concept. A reminder of a time when Caesar's Palace treated its shopping mall not just as retail space, but as an attraction in its own right. In January 1998, the Las Vegas Hilton opened one of the most ambitious themed attractions the city had ever attempted. Star Trek The Experience was not a single ride or exhibit, but a fully immersive destination designed to place guests directly into the Star Trek universe. The attraction occupied approximately 50,000 square feet and was developed by Landmark Entertainment in partnership with Paramount Parks. From the outset, the goal was immersion. Entry began through the History of the Future Museum, a walkthrough exhibition charting the timeline of Star Trek across television and film. Props, costumes, models, and artifacts lined the route, presented in a museum-style layout. Over time, displays expanded to highlight key alien races, including Klingons and the Borg. While the museum could be explored at leisure, it also served a functional purpose, acting as the cue for the attraction's two main experiences. The original headline attraction was Klingon Encounter, a hybrid live-action and motion simulator experience. Guests were first led into a small pre-show room and given what appeared to be a standard safety briefing for a shuttle simulator. Moments later, the lights cut out. Transporter sound effects filled the space, and a rush of cold air swept through the room. When the lights returned, guests found themselves standing on a transporter pad aboard the USS Enterprise. The effect was achieved by physically lifting the room structure above the audience, replacing the ceiling and revealing a full transporter set, a reveal that was praised at the time for its effectiveness. From there, live actors portraying Starfleet officers escorted guests through a recreation of the Enterprise corridors and onto the bridge, which had been meticulously rebuilt for the attraction. Commander Riker appeared on screen, explaining that Captain Picard had vanished from the timeline and that one member of the group was crucial to restoring his existence. The experience continued through a simulated turbo lift malfunction, complete with a staged freefall, before guests boarded a shuttlecraft motion simulator. The shuttle escaped the Enterprise during a Klingon attack, travelled through a temporal rift, and ultimately returned to present-day Las Vegas. The ride concluded by transporting guests back to the Hilton, tying the narrative loop together before riders exited into the next area. Exiting the shuttle, guests entered the Deep Space Nine promenade, which functioned as both an exit path and destination in its own right. This area housed multiple themed retail locations, including high-end memorabilia stores and general merchandise outlets, many of which sold exclusive Star Trek items. At its centre was Quark's Bar and Restaurant, a full-service dining location where costume performers interacted with guests in character, further extending the immersive experience beyond the rides themselves. In 2004, the attraction underwent a major update, with the addition of Borg Invasion 4D. The original experience was renamed Klingon Encounter, and several bridge sets were reconfigured to make room for the new attraction. Borg Invasion shifted the tone toward a more intense scenario, placing guests inside a Starfleet research station under attack by the Borg. Unlike the earlier attraction, it relied less on set transitions and more on live performers, pre-recorded cast appearances, and a climactic 3D film sequence enhanced with wind, water spray, and seat effects, intended to simulate Borg assimilation. While Borg Invasion lacked the elaborate transporter illusion that defined Klingon Encounter, it was still praised for its atmosphere and for expanding the attraction's appeal during the mid-2000s. Despite strong fan support, the attraction faced mounting challenges. Following the sale of Paramount Parks to Cedar Fair in 2006, negotiations between Cedar Fair, CBS, and the Hilton failed to secure a long-term future for the experience. Declining attendance and rising operational costs ultimately sealed its fate. Star Trek The Experience closed on September 1, 2008, marked by a public decommissioning ceremony. Plans to relocate the attraction to another Las Vegas site were announced, but never materialised. Props, sets and furnishings were later sold or dismantled, bringing the project to a definitive end. For a decade, Star Trek The Experience represented the peak of Las Vegas's attempt to become a destination for immersive theme park-style attractions. It didn't just reference Star Trek, it placed guests inside it. And when it closed, it left a noticeable gap in the city's themed experiences. Because for a moment, it really did feel like the future had landed in Las Vegas. Throughout the 1990s and early 2000s, Las Vegas casinos experimented with attractions built directly into their interiors. Some were paid experiences, like walk-through exhibits and animal habitats. Others were free spectacles, designed to stop guests in their tracks. Attractions like the Lion Habitat at the MGM Grand, the Wizard of Oz walkthrough, and Siegfried and Roy's Secret Garden all reflected a period when casinos tried to offer more than gaming alone. But among these in-casino attractions, one stood out for its scale, complexity, and sheer visibility. Opened in February 1997 as part of the Rio's Masquerade Village expansion, Masquerade in the Sky was not tucked away in a showroom or behind closed doors. Instead, it unfolded directly above the casino floor. The attraction was quite literally a parade suspended from the ceiling. Inspired by carnival celebrations, Masquerade in the Sky featured performer-filled floats that travelled along a track nearly 1,000 feet long, mounted approximately 13 feet above the gaming floor. Each float was themed, including masks, balloons, and festival imagery, and carried dancers, singers, and acrobats dressed in elaborate costumes. Below them, additional performers filled the casino floor, tossing beads and interacting with guests as the show passed overhead. Shows ran multiple times an evening and were free to watch, making Masquerade in the Sky one of the most accessible attractions on the Strip. For guests who wanted a closer look, the Rio offered a paid option to ride in the floats themselves. Participants were taken backstage, costumed, and placed directly into the parade, a rare opportunity to become part of a major casino spectacle. Behind the scenes, Masquerade in the Sky was far more complex than it appeared. The attraction reportedly cost around $25 million to build, and featured 5 massive floats, each weighing up to 1,700 pounds before performers and riders were added. Although presented as a show, the system was engineered and regulated more like an amusement park ride, with floats subject to safety inspections comparable to theme park attractions. Originally produced by Farrington Productions, the show was designed as a family-friendly spectacle. Over time, it evolved. In 1998, an additional show variant was introduced, and in 2001, the production was reworked to be more adult-oriented, with bolder costumes and higher-energy choreography. By the late 2000s, however, the show was scaled back, remaining largely unchanged during its final years. For many visitors, Masquerade in the Sky became a defining memory of the Rio. It blurred the line between casino decor and theme park attraction, transforming the ceiling into a moving stage and turning the casino floor into a performance space. It also captured a broader idea that Las Vegas was exploring at the time, that spectacle itself could be a draw, even if it didn't require a ticket. The show continued to operate for more than 16 years, an unusually long run for a Strip attraction of its kind. But by the early 2010s, the Rio was changing. Ownership shifted, budgets tightened, and the emphasis moved away from large-scale free entertainment. On March 30th, 2013, Masquerade in the Sky performed for the final time. Its closure marked the end of one of the most elaborate in-casino attractions Las Vegas ever built. While other spectacles had come and gone, few matched its ambition, redefining what a casino attraction could be. By the early 1990s, Las Vegas had begun placing major attractions directly on the Strip itself. These weren't the usual ticketed experience behind casino doors. They were large-scale, free spectacles designed to stop pedestrians in their tracks and pull them toward a property's front door. The first and most influential of these was the Mirage Volcano. When the Mirage opened in 1989, its artificial volcano immediately became one of the most recognizable features on the Strip. Positioned along Las Vegas Boulevard, The lagoon and rockwork were impossible to miss, deliberately blocking views of neighbouring properties and replacing neon signage with something theatrical and organic. The volcano wasn't just a static prop. Several times each night, fire shot into the air, flames rolled across the lagoon, and water cascaded down the rock face as if the entire structure were alive. The effect was achieved through natural gas jets, high-powered pumps, lighting effects, and a carefully engineered recirculating lagoon system. The attraction proved immediately popular. Traffic slowed, crowds gathered, families, gamblers, and tourists all stopped to watch the eruptions. It helped show that a casino frontage could be an attraction in its own right. The success of the volcano directly influenced the next wave of Strip developments, many of which adopted their own water-based spectacles. Among them was Treasure Island, which opened in 1993, with a very different kind of show. Fronting the hotel was Buccaneer Bay, a large lagoon featuring 2 full-scale ships and a live-action pirate battle. The original Battle of Buccaneer Bay was performed multiple times each day and depicted a clash between pirates and a British naval vessel. Cannons fired, buildings exploded, and one of the ships sank at the end of each performance. The show ran for nearly a decade, totaling more than 16,000 performances. Like the Mirage Volcano, it was free, visible from the Strip, and designed to funnel crowds directly toward the casino entrance once the show ended. It became one of the most recognisable attractions on Las Vegas Boulevard throughout the 1990s. In 2003, Treasure Island reworked the concept. The original pirate battle was retired and replaced with Sirens of T.I., a new version that leaned into music, choreography, and a more adult tone. The British Navy were removed entirely, and the show now centred on a group of sirens luring pirates into a conflict that ended in a modern dance-filled finale. Technically, the show remained impressive. It used the same ships, large-scale pyrotechnics, and water effects as its predecessor. Public reaction was mixed. Some praised the production value, while others felt it lacked the clarity and spectacle of the original pirate battle. Still, Sirens of T.I. ran for 10 years, closing in 2013. Its removal was initially described as temporary, but it soon became clear that the space would be permanently altered. Retail development reduced the size of the lagoon, and no replacement show followed. By the time Sirens of T.I. ended, the era of large-scale strip-front spectacles was already winding down. The Mirage Volcano continued to operate, even receiving a major upgrade in 2008, but very few new attractions of this kind appeared afterward. Properties increasingly focused on interior experiences, ticketed shows, and retail developments that could generate direct revenue rather than large crowds outside. Together, the Mirage Volcano and Treasure Island's pirate shows represent a specific moment in Las Vegas history. For a time, some of the city's most elaborate attractions required no admission, no reservation, and no entry into a casino, just a place on the sidewalk, with the Strip itself becoming the stage. When people talk about family-friendly Las Vegas in the 1980s and 90s, the conversation usually jumps straight to themed resorts and other attractions. But years before those arrived, a full-scale water park was built directly on the Strip itself. Wet n Wild Las Vegas opened on May 18, 1985, on 28 acres of prime Strip land, between the Sahara and El Rancho. It was a joint venture between the Howard Hughes Development Corporation and the Wet n Wild brand, built at a cost of around $14 million. The thinking was simple. If Las Vegas wanted to broaden its appeal beyond gambling, a large-scale water park made sense in a city defined by heat, sun, and wide-open space. Rather than competing with Disneyland or Knott's Berry Farm, the park was designed as something different, a high-capacity outdoor attraction that could slot neatly into a Vegas trip without trying to replace Southern California's theme parks. And at opening, it delivered exactly that. The park's signature centerpiece was a surf lagoon, with wave-making turbines generating rolling waves. Then there was the ride that made its presence known from the street, Der Stuka, a 76-foot slide towering above Las Vegas Boulevard, doubling as a roadside landmark. Later additions like the Bombay Capsule turned the drop into a moment of pure anticipation, with a trapdoor dropping riders straight into the slide. Throughout the late 80s and early 90s, Wet n Wild expanded steadily rather than explosively. New rides were added as budgets allowed. Black Hole arrived in 1992 with its enclosed space-themed tube, while attractions like Raging Rapids, Banzai Banzai, and a winding lazy river filled out the lineup. After years of rumours about redevelopment, the park tried to prove it wasn't going anywhere by announcing new additions, including the Royal Flush, which opened in 1998, sending riders into high-speed bowl elements. Behind the scenes, though, the story was getting messy. Starting in the late 1990s, Wet n Wild bounced through multiple owners. By 2002, it was purchased by Palace Entertainment, but there was one huge catch: the land was leased, meaning the landowners ultimately controlled the site. By 2003, redevelopment plans were moving forward, and by 2004 the writing was on the wall. Even so, the park made one last investment, Dragon's Den, a pro-slide attraction unveiled in May 2004, complete with a mist-breathing dragon figure. Wet n Wild closed on September 26, 2004, not because it had failed, but because the land beneath it was simply worth more than a seasonal water park could ever justify. What followed was a familiar Las Vegas story: ambitious redevelopment plans, billion-dollar promises, and years of empty land where the attraction once stood. Loved by locals, Wet n Wild Las Vegas didn't fail as an attraction, but was overtaken by the economies of the Strip, a casualty of a city still deciding what kind of destination it wanted to be. When Adventuredome opened inside Circus Circus in 1993, then known as Grand Slam Canyon, it arrived with a ride lineup that looked closer to a small regional amusement park than a casino attraction. Beneath the pink glass dome was a roller coaster, flat rides, and multiple water attractions, all operating year-round in a climate-controlled space. Among the park's early attractions were Twist and Shout and Rim Runner, both of which would eventually disappear. In later years, Chaos would join them as another notable loss, together reflecting how Adventuredome's attraction mix changed over time. Twist and Shout was one of the park's opening day water attractions. It was a raft-style water slide featuring nearly 400 feet of twisting channels, offering fast turns and moderate drops rather than a single large plunge. Twist and Shout sat alongside Rim Runner in the early years, reinforcing the park's initial emphasis on water rides as a major component of the indoor experience. While popular, it occupied valuable floor space and lacked the visual impact of larger attractions. It closed in April 1994, less than a year after the park opened. Rim Runner, by contrast, became one of the park's most recognisable attractions. Built by Aerodynamics, it was a large indoor shoot-the-chutes ride that dominated the interior of the dome. Riders boarded boats on an upper level before drifting through a water channel, entering a lift tunnel, and ascending toward the ride's single major drop. The lift was intentionally dark, with flickering lights embedded in the walls and seasonal overlays added during Fright Dome. At the top, boats crested slowly before plunging down a double-dip drop into a splashdown pool. Canyon Blaster passed directly overhead at the drop's peak, adding to the sense of scale. When Rim Runner opened, the splash was extreme. Riders were soaked, and the wave regularly drenched guests watching from the bridge next to the run-out. Complaints led to physical changes, including acrylic splash barriers and modifications to the boats themselves. Over time, entire rows were closed off, reducing capacity but allowing the ride to continue operating. Despite these changes, Rim Runner remained a fixture of Adventuredome for nearly 20 years. It operated from 1993 until February 3, 2013, making it one of the longest-running attractions in the park's history. Its closure was not due to lack of popularity, but rather the practical realities of maintaining a large indoor water ride. the space it occupied was cleared to make way for El Loco, a compact steel coaster that opened in 2014. While Rim Runner defined the park's early years, Chaos represented a later phase. Installed in 2001, the Chance Ride's Chaos was a high-energy flat ride that flipped and spun riders at steep angles. It fit the early 2000s push towards more aggressive thrills inside the dome and became a familiar sight for over 2 decades. Chaos lasted until 2023, making it one of the longest operating examples of a ride model that has now disappeared entirely. Together, Twist and Shout, Rim Runner, and Chaos represent 3 stages of Adventuredome's evolution. The park began with a broader mix that included multiple water attractions, gradually shifting toward fewer, larger headline rides, and eventually prioritised compact, high-throughput thrills, better suited to an indoor environment. While the dome still stands and the park remains active, these lost rides highlight how much the interior has changed since 1993. At the northern end of Las Vegas Boulevard stands the Strat, a landmark that has spent nearly 3 decades trying to turn height itself into an attraction. From its opening in April 1996, the tower didn't just offer views of Las Vegas. It also had thrill rides perched at the very top. The first 2 attractions opened with the tower and immediately drew media attention. Big Shot launched riders straight up the tower's needle, making it the highest thrill ride in the world. Nearby, the high roller wrapped around the tower's observation pod, becoming the highest roller coaster in the world. It was visually striking, but was ultimately underwhelming. Becoming known for its thrill attractions, the tower's lineup slowly evolved. In 2003, X-Scream was added, pushing riders over the edge of the observation pod, teasing them with the drop below. 2 years later, that approach was used again, with the opening of Insanity. Opening in 2005 and installed 900 feet above the ground, Insanity wasn't a coaster or a launch ride. It was something simple, an extreme version of a basic fairground attraction. Riders were seated beneath a massive mechanical arm that extended over the edge of the tower. Once in position, the seats began spinning at speeds of up to 40 miles per hour, tilting them forward to a 70-degree angle, while leaving nothing but open air beneath them. There were no drops and no track. Instead, Insanity relied almost entirely on psychology. The slow extension over the edge, the spinning, and the moment the seats leaned forward, Las Vegas stretching out hundreds of feet below. For many riders, that combination was far more intense than any roller coaster. Like the other rides atop the tower, Insanity was at the mercy of the environment. Strong winds could shut it down, and shortly after opening in 2005, a wind-triggered fault led riders stranded for over an hour. The system worked as designed, but the incident highlighted the delicate balance of operating mechanical attractions nearly 1,000 feet in the air. Over time, the ride became a fixture of the Stratosphere. High Roller would close the year it opened, but Big Shot and X-Scream ensured the top of the tower still felt like a mini amusement park. Then, quietly, Insanity stopped operating. By March 2023, the ride was removed from the resort's website and listed as closed until further notice. No formal announcement followed. The manufacturer, Interactive Rides, had ceased operations, and a one-of-a-kind attraction perched at the top of a tower didn't make for simple maintenance. But ridership wasn't the reason for Insanity's downfall. If anything, its long run proved the opposite. There was always an audience for a thrill ride that extreme, that high up, in a city built on spectacle. The more likely issue was practical. Parts availability, and the realities of keeping a custom ride running in one of the most inaccessible spots on the Strip. It's clear the demand hadn't gone anywhere. Big Shot and X-Scream still operate on the top of the tower, and Skyjump continues allowing guests to freefall down the side. If Insanity doesn't return, something else will eventually take its place. Because in Las Vegas, the skyline doesn't stay the same forever. Las Vegas has always been defined by reinvention. each era leaving behind attractions that once embodied the city's ambitions, only to be replaced as tastes change and space becomes more valuable. The ride's chosen spectacles that vanished weren't failures, so much as markers of a moment when Las Vegas pushed beyond gambling, filling its resorts with experiences designed to impress, distract, and briefly redefine what the Strip could be.